text her real quick.
Can you hear me now? I don't think you can hear me, but I am off mute on my side. I can hear you. Yeah.
That's what we did in grade school, John. Instead of passing notes, we did sign language. Can you try one more time?
Yep. I'm off mute. Can you hear me? All right. I'm present and off mute.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Sure, let's do that just in case.
Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Cassidy.
Yes.
Councilmember Dan Hunt.
Present.
Councilmember Cox. Present. Councilmember Stubble.
Present.
Councilmember Josh Hahn.
Yes.
You have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Larson with a second by Councilmember Cox. I don't believe there's any amendments that need to be made. So we'll call for the question. Councilmember Larson.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. That passes. Next up, communication from the floor. Please approach the microphone and state your full name for the record. This meeting and comments are electronically recorded. All comments are limited to 3 minutes. If anyone wants to come for public comment, please do so now. Okay, seeing none, we'll continue on with item 4, Mayor and Council updates. We'll start with you, Councilmember Josh Hahn.
I don't have anything of any importance this evening. I would like to mention cinnamon, the cinnamon rolls
Yeah.
there. If you haven't tried it, you got to check that out. It's killer.
All right, good to know. Councilmember Stubble.
Thank you. Can you give me a thumbs up? I'm coming through. Okay, great. Well, sorry to be zooming in, but I have a lingering and pervasive cough. So I thought I'd save you all and myself from doing that in the council chambers. One update that I have is from the tree board, who has been part of a lot of conversations with city staff, as well as Wyoming State Forestry about making progress towards the tree inventory, particularly for City Park. And so those communications have been ironed out, and State Forestry has been contacted to help be the sort of expert in that space of how we do an inventory and create a document that tells us where we need to pay the most attention. And so that will proceed, as I understand it, through the spring. And council, we should be ready for Public Works to come forward with us as part of the budgeting process to pay attention to some more tree work that might need to happen due to our aging cottonwoods in City Park. So thanks to Lance and Kevin and Adam and Missy for those conversations on the city side, and the tree board for being a bit of a liaison and sounding board for State Forestry as well. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cox.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to meet with the chamber, and business as usual for the chamber right now as they're in the process of looking for an executive director to replace or to fill the vacated position. Lita also will have interest in this conversation tonight as far as how it can move and what kind of direction Lita, is a little bit stagnant and having some difficulty getting board members to attend and be active and present in a way that's productive, and not because they're not invested, but it's time consuming and not having clear direction. And so this will be a good opportunity to have an additional conversation about the direction of LEDA and the city. was able to go to business after hours. And for those of you who haven't gone or don't know what that is, the Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with the ambassadors, put on a business after hours. And it's an incredible opportunity to come and meet folks as well as, more in a casual setting where you're meeting local business owners as well as other community members. It's always productive, and it's a good opportunity to make connections in the community, not only for council, but for other community members. The other thing I wanted to talk about was we received an email, as did all business owners in Lander, for this last weekend when we had an increase in activity. We had the big wrestling tournament, and that went out early on. And so I just want to acknowledge that enhanced communication. I know that it helped businesses. I know that there was more businesses open. There were food trucks available for food. When you're traveling with the team in any capacity, the convenience and accessibility to food is really important. And so it was nice that that was available and businesses were aware. So good job. We greatly appreciate that.
Kudos to Ann Even for that.
Yep. And even. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Nothing from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
The same, did it travel, nothing for me.
Councilmember Larson.
I've just got one. Speaking of food trucks, the Lander Senior Center has a big feed coming on the 7th of February. And we just take the opportunity to support the senior center. $45 a head for really good prime rib. Come out and join them. It's on the 7th. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. A few things for me. One, I had the opportunity today to join the Police Department Command Staff Hearing from Responder Alliance. This is one of Chief Wah's initiatives, or to continue providing resources for our police department, which was great to hear. And a number of folks are here. They're ultimately the ones to say to what extent they see a future with that. But they had great questions asked, particularly about how we can better improve the employee assistance program. So great questions there. So Rochelle, you and I are going to have some conversations soon about that. Got invited to join Governor Gordon next week for the tax forum. My understanding, the question posed to me was, what does reduction in property tax mean for our city budget? So it's before this 25% cut went in, it was about 12% of our budget, of our general fund budget. And what does that look like if continued cuts to that happen? Folks should be informed for making best decisions at the booth. And then want to echo what Councilmember Stubel said about the tree inventory. We are blessed that our cottonwoods in City Park have lived this long. They are past their prime for sure. And we know a number of them need to come down, which is going to be heartbreaking. We need to do that proactively before. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how many hundreds of pounds a limb weighs. Could do tremendous destruction to property and or life. It's also very expensive to take those down. So that's one thing Kevin Green will be looking at, and increasing the parks budget to be able to both have machinery to do the chipping. I think one tree took something like 5 dump truck loads when they did that. Yeah, pretty amazing. To have a chipper to do the removal process, and also increase funding for tree replacement as well. So you can anticipate that when we start talking about the budget. And then lastly, I am yet again, I've got 4 more weeks of wearing this garb to meetings here. The Sabres are doing awesome. 10 days ago, we hosted all the middle school teams up at Beaver Creek, and I could not be prouder of these kids. So all of our kids managed to ski the 4-kilometer longer route. Really impressive that for one of our skiers, it was her 4th day on skis. I mean, mind blown at how amazing that is. I'm so proud of her. We have kids who were brand new to skiing to kids trying to qualify for junior nationals. And they should be U14, but we don't have a U14 category. So they're going for it in the U16, which likewise I'm super psyched about. And despite all of those things, which I think are awesome, the Sabres continue to set the standard for good sportsmanship, and they really set a high bar for that. And I could not be prouder of them for that. So that is my update. So I'll turn it over to staff, starting with Chief Wah.
Mayor, council, thanks. And thanks for stealing my thunder about Responders Alliance. I'd like to give a formal thanks to Councilmember Larson. Thank you. You rescued us today in a time of need, finding a place for that. Every corner we turned, it was closed and or booked. Well, I really only have one other thing to add as far as an update. I'm going to make a guest appearance tomorrow on the Fremont Biz podcast to give a presentation about first responder alert, safety plans for businesses. They had sent out an email to everybody about their safety plans for major events or if they had an active shooter. I'm going to speak tomorrow on their podcast. Next month at the business luncheon, some of my staff is going to be doing a presentation on safety plans for all of the businesses. So I have nothing else unless anybody has any questions.
I do have a follow-up question. Within that conversation, will there be a communication strategy amongst businesses? So, in school districts, when you have, say, an active shooter or something, there's a direct line of communication and it's quick and efficient, ideally. Is there a way that Lander could be like cutting edge as it comes to how we would communicate quickly? You know what I'm saying? So if you have an incident down First Street, how does the rest of Main Street hear about an active incident immediately?
Yes, ma'am. Those are some of the questions we want to get answered. The perception is that we're going to come and give them all the magic answers on how they should build their safety plan, and that's, as we know, not the case. Each individual one's going to be different, but we want to get some feedback from them on where they are and how they're operating. I just sat through a different meeting yesterday with another, believe it or not, software system that I found that we can add numbers via text message to people to where we can get alerts out to the community via text, geo-fenced in based on what it is, if it's active shooter, broken pipes, whatever that looks like. So yes, we're looking into that too.
Do you think there's an opportunity to partner with, say, like County 10 to deliver that in a different capacity?
What do you think, Vince? Yes, I do. And I think for right now, until we find whatever that magic software looks like, that's what we need to do, is sit down with the business owners and the chamber and build the best plan that's the most effective for everybody to get the information out as fast as we can.
Any other questions? Okay. Lance, turn it over to you.
Yes, thanks, Mayor and Council. Just one update. We're currently going to bid Lincoln Street, or Buena Vista next Tuesday. And so we've had quite a bit of interest at the pre-bid. And so there were 6 prime contractors there, but we heard feedback that that's something they need to do in 2 years, not 1 year, from all of those. So we have the option of somebody trying to come in and build that much project in a year. But we'll see how it goes. That option's still there if they want to take that opportunity to get it done quicker. But we'll open those bids and see where our prices are. I imagine that they're quite a bit higher than when we originally put the projects together. We'll adjust from there and see what we're going to do next, if we need to go back and find more funding at some point, but we're still working through the SRF funds that we currently have. But anticipating in year 1, they'll work somewhere up close to the community center. And then year 2 would be from there up and above. And we have plans to make sure that the road is open for the 4th of July and that there's access to the hospital at all times and that. So happy to answer any other questions you guys may have.
Thank you. Any other questions about that? Lance, I would add, I'm really psyched that the water meter app is out and available now. That's going to be awesome for folks.
Yep, they can see real time what's going on and help detect leaks. It's hopefully going to be helpful across the community.
Yeah, folks haven't heard about it. It literally is real time. You can look at it and it will tell you not just that water was used, but it's going to tell you the difference of doing a load of laundry versus flushing a toilet. It's amazing. For those that like to geek out about those things. So, Regine.
Thank you, Mayor. One big update on the Public Law 566. That is federal congressional funding that funds watershed protection and flood prevention projects. We applied for it in 2022, and they're just now getting around to working with us. Lance had the great idea of trying to add flood prevention to something that was watershed agricultural management. We met with them last week, and they are going to allow us to add some flood prevention purpose and need to our statement. So it's kind of like putting in a new application for relevant for 2026. Really happy about that. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? I'd be happy to answer.
I have nothing tonight unless somebody has questions for me.
Questions? Okay, Rochelle?
As council may be aware, Dwayne Kaiser is retiring from the police department after approximately 10 years in his current position and 18 years as law enforcement before that. And we have hired a replacement for him, and she will start Friday. Her name is Rachel Depew. We also, tonight you will swear in a new law enforcement officer, so we're excited about that. We have part-time cleaning interviews at the end of this week. We have 3 of them. There were 6 applicants, and we're interviewing 3 people. So hopefully tonight you'll swear in the new treasurer as well, and hopefully we'll be fully staffed and people will be happy for a minute. Like, don't quit.
Great, thank you. All right, speaking of swearing in a new officer, that's next up.
Mayor, council, again, thanks. So I've been pretty vocal that I believe what we do needs to be recognized by you. When I first took over in this position, we did a spiel on social media for quite a while to introduce who our staff was, where they came from, how long they've been here. I heard a lot that people don't know who our staff is. So I believe that one of the most absolute important things you do as an administrator is hire the right people and promote the right people. And I think it's extremely important that you guys get to know who these people are, that they're sworn in front of you, and that it's made a big deal. Like, this is a bigger deal than punching a shark in the face. So tonight you're going to meet Ethan Borchardt. He was born and raised in Casper, Wyoming. He graduated from Natrona County High School in 2018. He enlisted in the Wyoming Army National Guard as a field artilleryman after graduating from high school. Ethan Borchardt graduated his basic training and advanced his individual training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then deployed to Iraq from 2019 to 2020 under Operation Inherent Resolve, where he was awarded the Army Commendation Medal with a C device for combat. Ethan Borchardt returned and was a plumber for 2 years in Casper. He joined the Riverton Police Department in 2022. Yes, we stole another one. Ethan Borchardt was employed by the Riverton Police Department for almost 4 years while still in the Army National Guard. Ethan was then deployed to Syria from 2024 to 2025 under Operation Inherent Resolve and Operation Spartan Shield, where he was awarded his second Army Commendation Medal with a C device for combat and the Combat Action Badge. Ethan Borchardt returned to the Riverton Police Department, where he became a certified custody and control instructor, Taser 10 instructor, and an alert active shooter response instructor. So he will be at the luncheon. He just doesn't know it yet. Ethan still actively is enrolled with the Wyoming Army National Guard as a staff sergeant. So that's the type of people that we're bringing to the Lander Police Department. He's joined tonight by his girlfriend, Ashley Eckley. She's from Riverton. She's an esthetician. She's from Riverton. So we're bringing Riverton to Lander.
Oh. Right. We have one more appointment. So to swear in our new treasurer, Kristen Kane. Yeah. Glad to have you. And- Yes, would love to. And yeah, I know. We're gonna put you on the spot for this. And your first day is gonna be February 2nd, is that correct? Next Monday, okay. Um, so we are very fortunate to have Kristen joining us. She's got a long history working in financial background for a wide variety of entities that you've done, substantial budgets, different kinds of organizations, for-profit, nonprofit, et cetera. So we're really excited to have her come to the city of Lander. And maybe for your first council meeting, when you're officially sitting over there, we can give you a little bit of time to introduce yourself as well to the council. That would be great to get a little more background. Yeah. So thank you. And do we dare say where your home is? And you're also Riverton. Just like there's a bit of a migration happening. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. And thank you very much. We're very excited to have you join the team. Two new great folks joining the Lander team. All right, let's move on to the unfinished business. Oh, man. Right. Let me take a few breaths for this one. So next up is to approve second reading of ordinance 2025-15, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Black Hills Wyoming Gas LLC, DBA Black Hills Energy, its successors, and assigns and the right, permission, and authority to construct and maintain and operate a gas transmission and distribution system, including mains, pipes, conduit services, and other structures in, under, upon, over, across, and along the streets, alleys, bridges, and public places within the present and future corporate limits of the city of Lander, Wyoming, for the furnishing, transmission, distribution, and sale of gas, whether artificial, natural, mixed, or otherwise, for lighting, heating, domestic, industrial, and other uses in said city and elsewhere, limiting the term of said grant, prescribing the terms and conditions under which said company may operate, and repealing ordinance 1239. Did I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cox with a second by Councilmember Cassidy. You can see that the red line version has been provided as well. Seems like a little surprising that it took quite that long to get S's removed. But Lance, anything to add on this?
Yeah, they just had a change in attorneys and so I think this is just a different person reviewing in their own personal touch on the
Okay.
document.
A
So,
bit pro forma.
Yeah.
Great. Any questions for Lance? Councilmember Danhon.
Well, I have a question. Did we change up? I was looking at the old contracts and our franchise fee was based on a per therm. And it appears we're going to go to a 3% gross revenue. Well, how have we run the numbers to see, because the numbers I have was per therm, and I'm not sure of the conversion, but the per therm was 0.0126, and it's actually run for 20 years. And now we're jumping to 3% of the gross revenue. And I'm really not sure how that calculates, but I'm interested because if, like everything else, it's usually a pass on. It usually passes on to the customers. My concerns are, and I'm not sure if I have a concern or not, but my concern is this going to really jump the cost to the customers in Lander? And then the other question is sometimes commercial rates are higher. I don't know. I just don't know. And so those are questions I have, and it's hard to make a decision when I'm really not sure really how big of a jump this is, if it's little tiny or if it's something big. And I'm not sure. That's a question.
yeah, I guess this is a pretty standard way with the percentages of doing it, but therm is a standard way too. So when we talk to them, I think they're both options. The adjustment to percentages of gross revenue is about a $50,000 increase to the city of Lander's budget. But again, that is coming from a company then that charges rates. So I think you're onto that ultimately it's being paid for by taxpayers, but this is a standard rate and isn't something out of the normal either way we do the calculation. So the 3% was easier for us to find gross revenue and do that versus the therm calculation was completely coming, from them to us. So it's an easier way for us to track how much gross revenue is and get information. So there is an adjustment there, and I guess we can bring somebody in if you need more information or they seemed okay with the change. They weren't pushing back on the rate.
Well, I definitely see the advantage. I'm just not sure I'm not sure what the hit's going to be for I don't know how big of a jump that is from this number to the 3%. And it's hard to make
Is your concern that by the city choosing the more advantageous finances for the city that will increase consumer rates?
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
My understanding is no, their rates are they also Public Service Commission? So they can't just arbitrarily increase the rates because Lander.
So
goes-
this is not going to affect the customers.
Correct.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, call for the questions, starting with Councilmember Han.
Yes.
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 Great, and that passes. Moving on. Next up is to approve the appointment of Marcus Kroll to the Urban Forest Council Tree Board. So likewise, a motion and a second, please.
Move to approve the appointment of Marcus Crail to the Urban Forest Council Tree Board.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? You can see the information there. Mr. Crawl seems very keen to serve. It's great to have someone yet again stepping up as a volunteer.
Mayor, could I just jump in?
Please.
I just add, yes, thank you so much to Mr. Kroll for being willing to join the board. The board is, a couple folks have had conversations with him and are pretty thrilled to see this appointment be made tonight. So thanks to you, Mr. Kroll, and looking forward to this being a positive vote.
Awesome.
So is Mr. Kroll here?
Yep.
There you go.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Lance.
Marcus behind the scenes is one of our lead engineers that we work with all the time with HDR. So you may not see him often, but we end up, as far as Buena Vista is concerned and other projects, he's one of those great minds we work with on the other side of the businesses too. So great to have him as a volunteer. Really appreciate all your efforts for the city.
Awesome. Good to know. Okay. All right. So call for the question, Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
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 Okay, and that passes. Next up is Resolution 1380, adoption of the Fremont County Municipal Tribal Emergency Operation Plan. A motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motioned by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Councilmember Cassidy. And Regine, you've mentioned this before, that it was coming before us. Any other information to share or questions about it? No. Just making sure we all can play fair and share in the event of an emergency. Okay, Councilmember Hahn.
Yes.
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 And that passes. Next is to approve the removal of Shari Lara from all City of Lander accounts. After 19 years. Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Larson, seconded by Councilmember Cox. Obviously something we need to do with changing a position. Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
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 Okay, and that passes. And the partner here is to approve the addition of the new city treasurer, Kristen Kane, to all City of Lander accounts effective February 2nd, 2026. Can I get a motion in a second?
Mayor,
Yes.
if I could we go back to new business where we actually did not make a motion to approve the appointment of Ms. Kane? We just swore her in. So could we?
That is correct. So,
Yep. Could we make that motion first and then add her to the accounts?
so Adam, can we add that in? It's not on the agenda, but it is the appropriate process.
You'd have to make a motion to amend the agenda.
I do believe it's on the agenda as approve the appointment. We just didn't do it. It's new business,
It was
6B.
listed-
You're
but it
right.
was-
So
it was
sorry.
Listed as a non-action
We-
item.
But approving the appointment should be a voting item.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I believe that I intended to type as agenda and approve the appointment of new city treasurer, not the addition. And so I believe that was a typo. It should read, approve the appointment of new city treasurer, Kristen Kane, to the City of Lander, and add her to the accounts effective December 2nd or February 2nd.
Okay, so we need a amendment to this to D.
Correct.
Someone would like to make an addition. We just got suggested language.
I
Correct.
move that we amend the agenda, specifically 8 new business action items, D, where it would say approve the appointment. Thank you. The appointment, instead of addition, of the new city treasurer, Kristen Kane. And add her to all City of Lander accounts.
Okay, so we have a amendment offered by Councilmember Cox. Can we get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Josh Hahn. So let's vote on the amendment first, starting with Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
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 Great. And we good now, Adam, for that? as amended. Okay. So can we get, did we already have a second for that? Motion and second for the first one? No, we did not. Okay, so now we need approval for the amended item D. A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Councilmember Cassidy for the amended item D. Approve the appointment of new city treasurer Kristen Kane and appointing to all City of Lander accounts. And we'll call for the question.
Yes.
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 Great, and that passes, and thank you, Councilmember Stubble, for making sure we go back and get that done appropriately. Next up is approve and authorize the mayor to sign the independent contractor agreement between the City of Lander and the Wyoming Association of Municipalities for professional accounting and bookkeeping services. We get a motion in a second and then some info on this.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Cox with a second by Councilmember Cassidy. So I can give a bit of a background and Rochelle can chime in as well for this. So if y'all remember when we first were thinking that when Shari had intended to retire earlier, that we would have quite a few months of transition time directly working together, Shari and the new person, so that the new person had all the background and intricacies specific to the many forms of funding we have, the grant reimbursement, state funding, federal funding, budgeting, et cetera. Between a combination of Shari's schedule changing and also the strength of Ms. Kane joining us, there's not a direct transition. Shari's ready to start her work with WHAM, but the plan is for Shari to be able to spend the first week together in the office and then be available for a few hours each week as questions come up, as things come through, as we move into the budgeting session, et cetera. So we'd be doing that through the auspices of WHAM as opposed to having Shari on staff and Kristen on staff. So that's the background information on this and why we have that planned. So it would not, other than that first week, it would not be the consistent back-to-back both in the office. It would be a few hours a week for the, I mean, somewhat to be determined. I know like Shari's done her best to leave good notes and systems for you to follow, but we know there will be questions that come up to be able to state, okay, so on Thursday afternoon, can we take a couple of hours to address X, Y, and Z and A, B, and C, and then continue on. So on an as-needed basis. So anything else that either of you would want to add for that or questions that y'all have? Councilmember
So
James?
this is fairly low dollar, get her in the door and consulting if she needs it along the way.
Correct. So we initially in the budget had, oh man, it was like, yeah. So a fair amount of money for the duplicate time. So I would not anticipate we'd come anywhere close to that dollar amount in this system.
Okay, thank you.
Substantially less, actually.
I do.
Councilmember
Is it
Cassidy.
capped on hours? Is it capped on hours?
We need to.
We don't have a cap on it right now, and that's certainly something we could consider doing to put a cap, kind of like how we did with folks doing the part-time work. So capping a dollar amount, seeing where that got us, and then if more needed to happen, that is certainly an option for it.
I do have just a couple logistics questions with the contract, and that is, the contract is with the Wyoming Association of Municipalities at the rate of $100 an hour. And so just by way of information, Ms. Laura is now an employee of the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. Where do they come up with the nice number of $100 an hour? That's definitely not her hourly wage. And
I have a quick answer.
okay,
You'd have to ask her.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what they told me.
that's what Wham told you, or that's what Shari
They're
agreed
one and
to?
the same at this point.
I will note that is less than what is commonly charged by accounting firms here in Lander. Yeah.
Except she's not acting as an accounting firm. She's acting as a succession plan for a new employee with orientation on onboarding and training. So it is slightly different. It's not a consultant, but it is. My concern would be, I think that we have to have a cap. I would like to, keep her around. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, time and quant.
Yeah. And then just to better understand their fiscally, so the money goes to them, and then in turn, essentially they're allowing her to work during her scheduled time, which I don't care about really, but I just want to make sure we don't get into the threshold of
Mayor, if I may. Yes.
overage.
So this is a new program initiated by WHAM and
just gonna
Ashley
say
at
that.
WHAM, and it is a member benefit. So all WHAM members now, which now is all 99 cities, have the opportunity to get this service from WHAM. In our case, it looks like Shari's coming back to work for us, but she also might be working for Pavilion and Hudson in the same week. So it is a
Yeah.
member benefit provided by WHAM.
Thank you so much. That answers the question completely. So we just now need to make sure we have a threshold to not go over. That's great, because it will really help as she enters in to this job. So that'll be nice. Thank you, Regine. Councilman?
Now, if you're going to put in a threshold and all that, that would be something we would have to negotiate with WHAM, because what they provided to us was what I put into this particular contract. So you may not be able to approve it tonight if you want to enter into further negotiations with them to update this contract, which could be an issue with Shari starting whenever she's going to start.
It would just be, would it not just be an internal? So the member, what we get out of it is that service at this dollar amount. What we internally decide is what the hourly threshold will be.
So
That we
you're
wouldn't-
proposing that it would not be contractual. It would
That's
just be what
correct.
you guys want to say, you're cut off,
That's right.
no more.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think we could do that without amending the contract, but basically putting guardrails for ourselves on the,
Yeah, you wouldn't
The
have to
total
amend the
dollar threshold.
contract. The contract is
So-
that they're going to get paid at $100 an hour pursuant to their billing practices. And if you guys want to put a cap on that and say, you've only got so many hours, I mean, that's up to you guys. I would be somewhat cautious with that because we want to make sure that our new treasurer has ample training and opportunities. And certainly you don't want her to have a crutch with Shari. We want her to be her own person, and I'm sure she can figure it out really quickly, but we want to make sure she's getting ample training.
if we could say something costs not to exceed $10,000 or something like that.
You guys can
And-
come up
and
with
sit
whatever you'd
down.
like.
Right,
So
but-
that's up to you guys, and, because I mean, it's a pay-as-you-go plan. And so if we want to use her for an hour this month, you'd pay her $100. If you want to use her for 10 hours, I mean, that's essentially what you guys are going to impose on Ms. Kane.
Lance?
Shari's services that she's offering to the other municipalities have to do with grant management and, helping us with managing a lot of our federal grants in the future as well. So I do understand this onboarding piece, but if you are going to use her as a consultant potentially with other things in the future, would that be something you want to not approve, just these specific tasks? Or is it okay as we're working through some of those grants and other things that you're thinking, we could use WHAM? So I just would hate to see us limit our services that she can provide if there is budget and opportunity to use her for other services in the future.
And if I may, one other thing is maybe we see how much time is needed for her to be used, because I assume it's going to drop off over time.
Mhm.
So.
Mayor. So who would define in this room the scope of work that's required? Because we're talking about an hourly wage for an unknown amount of labor to achieve a certain unknown amount or an end state or a goal that has not been defined. And that's probably driving to some of the concern here is that, does anybody have a clear answer of, this is the gap that needs to be filled in understanding, knowledge, execution of the job? This is the party who can do that. It's going to take this many amount of hours. If that's not defined, it's very concerning on applying a dollar amount with an open-ended or unknown goal, you know? And if we are arbitrary about that, we are probably going to get it wrong, you know, whether it's too tight or too broad, you know? So we need to understand the scope of work that we are requesting to be done before we probably step into this. And I don't know if there's anybody in this room that would like to know that somebody in this room can clearly articulate that and say, well, you know, I've done the math. This is the gap. There's about 60 hours of work that needs to be accomplished. This is, you know, as an example.
And I appreciate where you're coming from that, Councilmember Cassidy. What we're trying to shift from was the originally planned for transition, working side by side at, you know, this bar. And given Ms. Kane's financial background and to some degree the change in schedule that, you know, life happens, we're looking at a much lower threshold of that. So again, if we had something like, at least as our first guardrail, call it that, as 6 months and $10,000, we can always revisit that.
Yeah.
With check-ins, especially as Ms. Kane gets her feet under her and starts to have a sense of that. Agreed that the turning to Shari for the historical knowledge. Remember that she was the treasurer for 19 years, so she's got a big depth of the historical knowledge that we want to be able to bring forward. And some of those might not come until we get into that process of the reimbursement with the financial loans on our street projects. Those are much more complex grants to be managing. So it might be radio silence between the two for a few weeks at that point as we get into the construction season, and then Shari coming back for a couple of hours during that time. But again, if we had a threshold that we can be comfortable with, watch how we're moving towards that, and then have the firsthand experience of what you're finding out. Like, here's where we're at. Here's my best estimate of residual time that I would need, and we can have that ongoing conversation. So I think there are ways we can manage that once we have a chance for Ms. Kane to actually step into the position.
Just a point of clarification. Lance, thank you for that comment because it brings to light that this is not just specific to the succession planning or training. This is a different contract that encompasses more than just one area. Is that it? Am I right? Okay.
I think what you're saying is we have that option to do it, especially again, is that in that transition period, there is significant complexity. And my hope is that we are able to transition to doing that in-house, but also not something you want someone to try firsthand flying solo.
No, I value the thought that we have somebody that's available to provide that support. Just by way of concern for myself, and I'm guessing others could echo that, is making sure we're managing the fiscal aspect of that and what that looks like for the budget for the city of Lander to ensure that we're aware that we're not ending up paying a contractor an exorbitant amount of money. We just need to be aware so that it doesn't grow to something and then we're like, oh,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We just want to have it up front and acknowledge and say, okay, here's what we're managing. And ours is the money in just to ensure fiscal responsibility and then moving that.
So again, currently in this budget, we had $50,000 for that transition time. So if we're proposing, I keep going back to that $10,000, we're substantially lower than what our budget is. And it provides us the opportunity, if it's not sufficient, we can revisit that at a later date. Councilmember Cassidy.
I understand that it was in the budget previously, and my concern is that we have a highly talented person that's departed. You know, when you have a highly talented person that's coming in, and I see the benefit, I've lived the benefit of having handovers that are thorough. There are many times that that's not the case, that you don't have that luxury to do that. I think there's a lot of value in these people and still having access to the historical knowledge and all that. I do not understand a broad blank, choose your own adventure scope of work. I don't think that that's a good way forward. Will you run into things through the handover process that you didn't anticipate? Absolutely. Where will that end? Who will determine where that ends? Is kind of an unknown. I would feel much more comfortable if there was some kind of clear scope of work with a determined amount of money associated with that. If we can grab dollar amounts out of the air that are very arbitrary. And if I had to make some assumptions about big G government, whatever you put that number at, it's going to hit the top of that. It's like a rev limiter. You're probably going to run right into it and stop there. I would love to say that that's not the case, but I have a feeling it probably is. So if we could more clearly articulate what that scope of work is, what the demand signal is, what needs to be done, then maybe we could be more clear on what number would be applied to that.
Other comments?
Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Stubble, yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I interrupted somebody there. It's hard to read the signals in the room. I mean, first I want to say I'm highly supportive and grateful that we have this transition expertise being offered through WHAM, and so I'm on board with the general direction we're going here, but I share some of the concerns that have been voiced. I think that as a lesson learned for us next time we face with this, these contractor agreements usually come with an Exhibit A about scope of services, and that's referenced in this contract, but wasn't provided to council in our materials, and that might have answered some of these questions. Ideally, it's what Councilman Cassidy has said, that scope of services does have a clearly delineated set of hours, right? You're going to do this task. We've sat down and thought it's going to take 10 hours. It's going to take 40 hours for the first week, right, of full-time work. And that would give us a little bit more tangible, quantified numbers for us to grapple with here. And we don't have that. I don't know if that's something that you have handy, Mayor, to discuss with us now. But if not, what I'm hearing is 1 hour of full-time, or I'm sorry, 1 week of full-time work. So that's $4,000 at this rate. And then a couple hours here and there for ensuing weeks for a couple months. So, I mean, I think at max, we're looking at $8,000 here. 10, maybe it's immaterial to go between 8 and 10. If that's an intention we can agree to, that's a cap that we want to stay within, it's below the budgeted amount, then I'm good to go. But I think the next time we do this, it would help us to have that degree of detail provided to us before we come to a vote.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, that Exhibit A was not provided. It says if there is one, and I only included that is if there were further scope of work items that could or needed to be included. There wasn't at the time when I drafted it. I submitted it to WHAM, and they didn't provide any other scope of work to be included on an Exhibit A. And so, as it stands right now, the scope of work as outlined in the agreement is what they approved for this particular.
Well,
and that being said, this is a new program or a new offering from WHAM, and they didn't have any agreements. And so they relied on me to draft those agreements. And I drafted it as though it was an independent contractor agreement. So we don't have a lot of control over what we can do with them because they're just providing a service, is essentially what it is. It's a service that they're providing. And if you want to limit, I mean, the scope is fairly clear in my opinion. They're going to be providing help, right? I guess what you guys need to figure out is how much money you want to allocate to this so that Kristen will know how much time she has to use Shari. To me, that's what's going to be clear, because if she knows she only has 10 hours to be able to allocate to use Shari in a given month, then she's going to be fairly judicious in how much she calls Shari. So to me, that's what this really comes down to. I mean, the contract, I mean, I wrote it so I can brag a little bit, but I do think it's fairly clear in terms of the scope. But I really do think that if you guys want to limit that, that is something that you need to, that's not a contractual issue. That's something that you'll need to impose, saying, and I don't even know if it's you guys. I mean, you're the ones allocating the money. I think it's going to be her supervisor that says, you only get to use Shari for 5 hours because our budget allows for that amount of time. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification.
And Mayor, if I may, hearing that, I think that the council's place right now, because we have approved a budget that does approve a certain amount of money for an overlap. It wasn't for a contractor, but it was for, these purposes and intentions. I don't know that it's the council's place to name a number and vote on that in any form or fashion. Our budget approval has been made to provide training and overlapping for the treasurer position. And, you've heard our intentions of what we'd like to, have a bit more specificity the next time perhaps, and keep that as below that budget number as much as possible. But we certainly want, I want Ms. Kane to be able to reach out if she needs help whenever she needs that. I don't want that to be constrained, especially in the early weeks or months. So I'm comfortable to vote on this now, having aired our, our preferences for the degree of detail next time, and the interest that we had a budgeted $50,000. We want to be well below that if we can.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. Other comments or discussion for that? So are we comfortable, as Councilmember Stubble just said, we want to provide adequate training. We want to be mindful of the budget limit that's currently in the budget. I'm personally confident we will be well under that dollar amount.
Yeah, and I think I would just love to hear from Kristen after she spent a week with Shari about what that, scope looks like. And then we can make, if you're comfortable with that, because you really are the deliverer of the information, but then we have a better idea of what the need will be.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I was thinking the same thing, as if we could have perhaps some input, a desk handover, a review, and then say, hey, there's some things in here that I'm going to need, to sit at a conference table with her and go through. That's going to take approximately 8 hours, or all of this looks quite familiar. I have no questions, just some kind of clarity of that, after a bit of a review. I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah. And I realize I appreciate what you're saying on that and what that means. And I also want to make sure council should not be getting into the operational constraints as well. So there's that fine balance between helping us understand what the continued contract cost might be, but not getting into the detailed factor of, X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So kind of, it's a thin line to be threading, but we can do that.
And I understand that. But we are being asked to pick an arbitrary amount of dollars and approve that with zero scope of work. So the other side of that perhaps is, if we can have a clear understanding of the cost of whatever the thing is we're trying to purchase, then we can weigh whether it's worth that amount of money. So that's kind of the other side of that coin.
Okay. Well, we've got a motion on the motion in a second, so I think we've discussed it. Can we go for a call for the question?
Please.
Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
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 Okay, motion passes. And the favorite part of our special meeting is, could I get a motion in a second to adjourn our special meeting?
So moved?
Second.
Great, moved by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Councilmember Cassidy. Call for the question, Councilmember Hahn.
Yes.
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 Okay, that meeting is adjourned and we will move into our work session. Jane, good to see you again. I missed going to the senior center liaison meetings. Yeah, you do. You do.
We miss you.
Okay,
Thank
Thank you.
I'm Jane Nolde, the executive director at the senior center. And, you can say, well, what is the senior center? What does it do? The senior center provides nutrition services in Lander and surrounding area. Just this year, we served 28,396 home-delivered meals. That's about 113 meals a day delivered to people living in Lander or just outside. It's for seniors, and a senior is somebody that's 60 or older. we served 15,962 meals at the center. We served two kinds of meals, home delivered and what we call congregate meals. We look at unduplicated counts, and we serve 608 people in the last year, unduplicated. Now, they may come to lunch, they may come to exercise, they may use a bus, but that's kind of how we keep our totals. But our program goes beyond food. The center provides public transportation for Lander. That's anybody 18 and older, taking them to shopping, appointments, wherever they need to go, which hopefully helps with accidents. When you can't see or something and need to give up your license, but it helps keep the individual independent. We also work to reduce social isolation. And we try to focus on overall health and well-being. And that's basically what is the senior center. So what do we do individually, kind of? Currently, we're offering a program, it's called Healthy You. And with the support from Sage West, University of Wyoming, Department of Health, and the Senior Center. What this program is, it's to help people with chronic diseases and their caregivers. And I twisted a lot of arms, but we got 16 people signed up. They are continuing. They're 6-week programs. These programs, the people that are doing it love it. They said it has really helped them, so they don't get, because you can get into depression with, you know, taking care of somebody and being stuck at home. And they said this is helping us to set up a plan. I'm real impressed with the program. The teacher is from Sage West. She has special training for this, and so I'm excited. We're going to do some more in the fall, I believe, and hopefully we can get more people. And it doesn't have to be just seniors. It can be anybody. If they're a caregiver or whatever, they can come to these programs. If you look in our newsletter, you'll see some of these advertisements that different things that we do. So we also have exercise programs, 2 kinds of Tai Chi, line dancing, yoga, stretch exercise, muscle exercises. We're busy, 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 as our new driver said. I can't believe how busy you guys are. But for the community, on Mondays, we have a VSD, which you can talk directly to Social Security. So if you're signing up for Social Security, if you need something with disability, you can come in and talk directly to a person from Social Security. And it's great because you can't always go to Riverton and get to see someone. Or this way, every Monday, barring bad weather, you can do that. We have a representative for veterans. They come in once a month and they can talk with a lady and she can help them with whatever the veteran problems that they have. And these are free services. They're for the community. So it's not just seniors, but most of the stuff is, of course, seniors. So what other things have we done this year? We have brand new carpet. Brand new carpet. Well, it's almost a year old, but you know, our carpet was put in 1996, and so it was time to replace it. It was becoming a little worn, although I miss it, but it's standing up. We had to replace a compressor in our walk-in freezer, which we could have $40,000 worth of food in that freezer. And if it goes out, what do we do now? So we know what we can do. We talked to businesses around town, you know, to see if we could take our food to their freezers, and we had good response. So it makes me feel good with the Lander community. Luckily, we didn't have to do that. We were able to get service and get the compressor put in, and it's run great. Has to stay below 0, 20 below, you know, you think. But we also have a new red van that we got the van through the mill levy. And so, as you can tell, our white vans are a little tattered and torn due to ice and so forth. But this red one, it's a good red streak through town. We have 12 full-time employees at the center. 4 in the kitchen, 4 in the front office, 4 drivers, and 1 part-time driver. So all of those people are doing all of this work. They're tremendous employees. So come down and say hello and thank you and whatever to them, because it's great. We also have many volunteers. And the volunteers, without them, we couldn't do some of the stuff we do. They ride along with the drivers to deliver meals. They get to know the people. They help set up whatever we need in the center. They wash dishes because they want to burn off their lunch, you know, volunteers. So the center, it's a great place. And, you know, the great thing that we have is we see how the community comes together for like the mill levy and so forth, but they also come together with volunteers to help us when we need, or just coming in and visiting, telling stories, have school kids come in and sing songs. And of course, most of them are grandchildren, so everybody's proud. But if there's anything that goes on in the community that anybody would like to let the seniors know about it, they're more than welcome. Give me a call and we'll get it set up. I know scams and stuff like that, the police have been great to help us out with that and help us with wellness checks and so forth that occasionally we need to do. But today, 2 days ago, somebody backed over one of our handicap signs. Didn't hurt the truck, but the sign was dead. So today, I want to compliment your city employees. They came and replaced it and got it all set up again till the next time. Hopefully, we won't have it too soon. And we appreciate the plowing the snow that you do for us. And we do realize we're not at the top of the bracket, but we do appreciate the help we get for that, for everybody. But we do a lot more than just cinnamon rolls. But
we should note the cinnamon rolls are pretty amazing. Despite you know, the new business in town. But,
yeah, it's good. But anyway, so thank you, Mr. Larson, for giving us a plug on our prime rib dinner. We have good cooks and it's going to be fun. We've got some music, so hopefully we can move some tables and kick up some heels. I don't know. We'll see what we can do. But we appreciate the city and all the people in Lander that help support us.
And we certainly appreciate all that you do. I mentioned I got to be liaison for 2 years, and that place is busy. Oh my gosh. It is truly a hub, and what you offer, the folks who come in, as well as the outreach that you do with the deliveries. You're a huge service to Lander. Thank you. Yeah.
Question.
Yep. Some questions?
I just had one comment there, Jane. One of the services that you guys provide that maybe I just didn't hear it, but they're doing income tax service. And that's for everybody, you know, and that's just huge. And so
it is
one of many things that they do there at the senior center.
Appreciate. Yeah, through AARP, we have volunteers that have to take a test from the IRS, but they'll do income tax, simple income tax, not big business jobs, but it's to help people save money, you know, that maybe can't afford some of it, that might get money back. But yes, they're getting ready to start 2nd of February. So if you want taxes done or anything, give us a call and get an appointment. So,
yep, another awesome service.
I just
Councilmember
I have a
Cox.
couple of comments and then a question. One is, what a valuable service the senior center is. Played a huge role in my family and keeping my in-laws busy almost to the end of their life. So I want to thank you publicly for that. The other thing is, do you have a succession plan? You know, you've been around for a while, and I was telling the mayor when you walked in, I was like, she gets younger. Every time I see you, I feel like you're younger. But I'm
Well-
just curious.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I will retire. I'm planning on staying there a little while longer, and I will give, it's kind of like Shari, I will give the executive board plenty of warning. I mean, to me, it's a 6-month process.
Yeah.
You know, because different things happen different times of the year that maybe only happen once. But I'll also be available if they need to. I'm not going to move to Timbuktu yet. But yes, we are watching that, and I just love my job. That's the
know.
hard part.
Sure, and you're very good
know.
at it. The other thing is, a few years ago, the senior center put a solar array on your roof, and then you have a electric vehicle plug-in. Are you seeing any return on that? Are you saving money? What are you?
Well, we have 2 electric vehicles that were donated, and we are using them to help deliver meals. So we are seeing savings that way because of the gas price.
Sure.
As far as solar for the building, because our use of the electricity, you know, is so intense in the morning, it doesn't cover it.
Okay.
You know, and we looked into maybe getting batteries and so forth, but that opens a whole different ball of wax. But it's good because people will notice it and say, oh, I mean, it's good marketing. It's, you know, we can answer questions. People can see about it. So it kind of advertises that solar's, if the center's using it, then it must be a good deal, you know, that kind of thing. But we just are, our time from 5 to 11 is so strong that it can't,
It just
you
doesn't
know, we
keep
need
up.
more panels actually, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Think
Well,
that-
thank you.
Yeah, if I remember right, the total system size that would totally offset all of the electricity used is above what the state currently allows for the threshold. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Because with the electric stove or ovens and so forth,
Yeah.
you know, and freezers and stuff.
thanks for all you're doing.
Mhm.
And please share that with your staff. We're
Okay.
very appreciative of
will.
all of them. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the discussion regarding overtime policy. And Rochelle, we're putting you on the spot for that.
Okay, just as a brief overview in your packet, the only item that was really in your packet for this, I have outlined the current policies, which are found in 2 different manuals. So Lander has historically been generous and paid overtime more generously than what's required by the federal standard. And it's been an ongoing discussion with mayors off and on since my time here. The One Big Beautiful bill sort of brought it out to the surface because when we were reading the press releases and things of that information, I'm not sure anyone really knows exactly how it's going to work. But when I was reading it, it talks a lot about the federal labor requirements and how overtime is paid, and that's what needs to be considered for a credit. But because Lander doesn't pay that way, we count holiday, vacation, and sick towards a 40. And for the police department, we run on a special program that the feds allow for first responders. So they can have a period, they have a 28-day reporting period instead of a 7-day where you're looking for overtime. And Lander has paid overtime once an officer hits 160 in the 28-day, and the federal rule requires overtime at 171. So we're more generous, which is great. But we had to go manually through each person's time card that received overtime because our software doesn't calculate it and pull it out, and provide information to our employees that said, you know, dear employee Jane, you received this much overtime from the city of Lander altogether this year. If we didn't count sick vacation holiday, you would have received this much overtime. And if you're a police department, if you didn't count sick vacation holiday and you were paid at 171, this is what you would have been paid. Take this information to your tax preparer and do with it what you will. I didn't want to get in the business of giving anyone tax advice because it's not where we were going, but I wanted to make sure they had the appropriate information so that they could do what they needed to do for their tax returns if they wanted to do anything. So then the question came, in looking at those numbers, does the city want to consider a change in that policy and follow the federal standard? It's hard to say because overtime fluctuates so much. I know Chief Wah has some comments about this as well, but it looked to me where the Lander would still pay overtime. You're going to have a water break. You're going to have a SCADA system that goes down and nobody's getting water at the treatment plant. You're going to have an event where the police department needs more coverage. Somebody's going to be out on FMLA. So certainly there's going to be overtime, but I think it would, from this last year, it looks like it would save conservatively probably $60,000 to $70,000 a year to make that change. Kelly?
I think you covered it. I guess the common issue that comes up, at least with my staff, is being paid, the way that it's paid for us right now, the 28-day cycle is different than the pay period. So they're generally tracking two different areas. And as we are right now, if we stay on the 28-day cycle, the overtime that they earn in October, November, they're not seeing till February, based on the way the cycle rotates. Me personally, I don't feel like that's our best foot forward. There's a lot of the young staff that they rely on overtime a lot right before the holidays to take care of their family and their kids. So I think that's a poor look for us that they're not even getting paid the overtime for at least a couple of months. One thing that I think is important, as you as the council decide on the policy, when we change the overtime, if we move from 160 to 171, which is the federal guideline for first responders, the common thing you're going to hear is we're taking away overtime, and that's not true. We're not. We get close to $50,000 a year in traffic grant, whether it's occupant protection, impaired driving. They can work that whenever they want for as much as they want. So there's ways to make up that money if the carte blanche is we're taking away overtime, because we're not. The other issue is if they work 10 hours of overtime the first week, and then if you take away a holiday sick vacation to reach their 40, if they have a sick day before the cycle's over, all they're doing is buying back. The overtime will go towards their hours instead of them getting paid the overtime. Those are the common consensus questions from my staff. This is the first place that I've worked that if one of my officers right now is not scheduled for a holiday, they still get paid holiday. This is the first place I've worked that's that way. So every other place that I've been involved in first responders is you're given a bank of holiday pay at the beginning of the year, and you use that like you use vacation. If the rotation works out that you end up working a holiday, that's just the way the rotation worked this year. It's not saying that you're always going to work that holiday. That's just my experience.
I have a question. Yeah. You made a comment about, so the 171 is not an issue for me. Is it your preference that we move away from the 28? We want to stay with the 28-day cycle, or do we want to go to the traditional 7 and 171?
Do you want my personal preference?
I do.
I would prefer that we go to 2-week pay cycles.
Instead of the 28-day.
I would, if it was my preference, Councilwoman, I would go to that we have 2-week pay periods. I understand that's a lot. I understand. I mean, that's questions Rochelle and those guys can answer for you. From me, both fiscally and schedule wise. So right now we're on a 12 hours. They work 12-hour shifts. They have to flex 16 hours somewhere in that 28 days. so they don't end up with overtime. If we move to 2-week pay periods, they have to flex, correction, they have to flex 4 every week. So that makes it easiest for us to flex time and move people around. If they worked a bunch of overtime this week and then close to the end of the month, they end up sick, they don't lose their overtime. They still get their overtime pay because it was in a different cycle.
Different cycle.
This is,
Different pay period.
yeah, and for me, honestly, this is one of the hardest pay cycle time card systems that I've ever been involved with. It's pretty frustrating.
So just be clear, these are two different issues and things that department heads have been talking about. 28 days is advantageous for this side of the house. It's not advantageous, as the chief just pointed out, for the PD. 2 weeks for the PD is preferable, but it makes things awkward on this side of the house. So that's, if we can do our best to keep that side separate from what's being talked about here in terms of how overtime, vacation, or how vacation and sick counts towards overtime is the first policy change that we're trying to address here. But there,
You're trying to stay within the 28-day cycle. And this affects other departments other than the police department.
Yes and no. So the 28-day cycle, let's say it starts January 1. In theory, then it's going to stop on the 28th. However, as we know, there's 31 days in January.
Yeah.
So then you're going to potentially have a new cycle start. So that's where it breaks over when our time cards are due and when you're paid. I disagree a little bit that it takes that long for them to get paid, but I understand it feels like that. There are months when it is longer. Now, we could do 2 tours of 2 weeks without getting paid every 2 weeks. It's just that your time that you're allowed to flex or accumulate hours before overtime is due is shorter. More like a traditional employee where you have the 7 consecutive days in a row. And then it's just 2 consecutive days in a row for a law enforcement officer, and it would stop no matter when you get paid. But however many hours you have in those 2 weeks, if you get over a certain number, they're getting overtime. So you can do that and keep employees paid once a month. Or you can switch to, which is beautiful, especially for law enforcement, to 2-week blocks that are just consistent, which is how many law enforcement officers do that. The challenge for Lander is that it does cause a little bit of challenge on the non-law enforcement side to do it that way, and it would increase the payroll burden, which, it's just a matter of where council wants to put time and energy.
So just by way of, again, clarification, and you guys might know this, so please bear with me. Currently, if an officer's off on vacation on Monday and Tuesday, his next shift is Wednesday, and then, because they work 3.5 days essentially in a week,
It's not that easy.
give or
but-
take,
yeah,
okay.
Give or take.
It's a moving target.
Right.
So we say 160, and then they can collect overtime. And not only that, but they also get the added benefit that within that 160, they can also be working, or they can also be taking sick and vacation and still accumulate overtime, which is not a promising practice for fiscal responsibility. But it's a promising practice to show we
That we
appreciate.
care, sure.
that we care. Yeah. Okay, and then moving that to the 171. So there's a couple of ways. Oh, okay. So moving that to 171 also aligns with more general guidelines.
correct.
Well, that's the federal standard. I think, in visiting with the staff and their stance on it, there's really 2 complaints. One, they would have to change their auto withdrawal. 2, if we end up short at the end of the month, if someone's sick or something happens, calling staff in to cover those shifts, if they potentially are not going to get the overtime for it because they had sick or something earlier, you're going to have a harder problem trying to get people that are voluntarily coming in. It's muddy at best.
Have we always paid law enforcement this way?
Oh,
Hmm.
I say it's always been in the policy since I came on board. Because we have the general managerial guidelines, which really spells that out, and then we have the policy. However, when I had a conversation with the police department, half of them told me that they got paid this way, and half of them told me, no, we get paid if we have over 40 and a 7. So at some point, I said, well, we're all doing it one way. You guys can't pick and choose how you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're doing for the ability to flex and have people cover when people are out on FMLA or call in sick or things like that, it really was the police department's preference to do the 28.
And we're not overstaffed in the police department.
Not
I
even
know.
close.
You know, it would be very
Or-
simple for payroll to say, hey, we're doing 40 and a 7. But, but it's hard for them to staff that.
Other questions
Hmm.
about?
The reality of it was they were not being paid different. It was confusion on what they thought they were being paid. So it was a clarification. Rochelle took the time to meet the entire staff and explain to them how the pay system actually worked. And there was confusion on what they were actually getting paid.
Is there time in the schedule to flex 16 hours in a 160?
We do it. This year was hard, I'll tell you, honestly, when we first started having this conversation, obviously as the department head one, but our overtime budget's higher this year for the police department than it's been for a little bit. But I had 3 different officers go out on leave. They had babies. And then I had one officer that only worked 32% of his scheduled shifts for the whole year. So we did a whole lot of moving and jockeying and moving people around to get the coverage done. So
And since this doesn't just affect the police department, Lance, do you have any input?
We haven't had very many issues.
Okay.
I mean, because of the 2 different overtime policies, we've always been within that standard work week and those 7-day work weeks. And we flex that at one point in time so that if we had to move employees to a weekend or there was a snowstorm or whatever it is, we could move standard time. Most of our overtime falls in us calling people directly. We do keep 2 on-call employees on all the time so that we have the assurance that we can at least get things going and then bring in the rest of the staff. But we haven't really had a lot of issues. I think that we have had people who've, put down a holiday or put down sick and then accumulated overtime a few times here and there. So it'd be minor adjustment as far as what that does to public works, if we're keeping it standard, and we haven't had the issues of people complaining about being paid once a month either.
one other curveball that it throws for us when we do the 28-day cycle, on day 28, my guys that work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., half of their shift is in this cycle and half of it's in the other cycle.
Any situation?
It is, but Rochelle and Kevin did a good job of breaking out her explanation that if we were at 171, what their overtime would have looked like versus 160, and it was substantially
Substantial.
less.
Okay.
And any other questions before we move on?
So we just wanted to bring it to councils because you're the policymakers. If you wanted us to move forward with the potential change or if we're all just good with how it is.
Would it be helpful to get a general kind of head nod about, does this make sense to folks about what you're trying to do? We have a sense of then bringing it to, because we would have to actually vote on it. Does this make sense to folks of what we're trying to achieve?
Do we have data, or I know we have data, could we collect data that shows the amount of overtime we paid and the trends? So this year versus next, or last year, previous, maybe the last 5 years?
That's the one thing I just asked her for when we first started talking about this and this first year came up. I'm like, wait, that's not fair. This has been a bad year for me. Can I have my last 5 years? And I believe that's currently what they're looking into, just so we can see the pattern over 5 years of where we've ended up and why.
And then I think it would be relevant for me anyway to know, because this idea that they get overtime when they have taken vacation or sick is, I think that's one of the policy areas that I'm concerned about, because
That's
it's usually boots on the ground, like that's a
Yeah.
comment that was shown.
That's what we're trying to change, that
Right.
vacation or sick would not count towards
Right.
overtime.
So what I would like to also know when that is in effect, if we're can act, so who has received overtime when they have also taken vacation and sick? Is that doable or no?
It's doable, but it would take us some time because we will have to pull everybody's time cards and go back and look at
Oh,
them.
that's
It
super
has-
easy.
It has to be
Okay.
done manually because
Oh,
of how
oh.
it's currently calculated.
Okay.
And tracked. We
Yeah, or I should say. how
haven't
it's
broken
tracked.
that down in Casell.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. So
there's
it'd be a
no-
manual
Correct.
ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Which is what we did do this year so that we could provide 3 different categories of information to our employees. So we have it for at least 1 year that could happily provide.
I would like to see us consider it. Sorry, I'd like to see us consider it. I think it's a way to save some money, but also I want to make sure my intention would be, of course, I'm pro employee, being a government employee for 23 years. I don't want them to feel as though we're attacking everything, but I do want to look fiscally at the cost savings and then how that impacts them also.
Sure. And I have similar thoughts, which is why I was comfortable bringing this forward, is one, being better aligned with the federal guidelines that became more specific with the big beautiful bill. Also, again, being fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars. And then thirdly, knowing it does impact our employees. So are there other ways that we can both be better aligned with the federal guidelines and provide some acknowledgement that for some folks it's going to impact them? So potentially we can do things like increase the dollar amount that's available through the HRA as a way to do that, or change what our health insurance coverage might be. So there's ways we can try to compensate that and still be fair and equitable to our employees, because they are the heart of Lander for that.
And I do believe that these changes, if you wanted to move forward with all the changes proposed, especially the 171, that would be most significant to the police department. And Kelly talked about the grant funding that is available for them. And it's important to note, I believe, and you may have said this, and I apologize if I'm reiterating it, that those funds get paid at a 1.5 rate, no matter how many hours they put in. So grant fund pays at what equates to overtime pay without the overtime required hours. So
And the grant's substantial enough, just to give you a full picture. I had when I started here, one officer that worked for us for 4 days a week when they were on 410s and worked his entire 3 days off hanging sheetrock. I sat down with him, walked him through the fiscal responsibility and the grant work and what's available to him. And he was quick to come in and work 6 to 7 hours of grant on his first day off and have that rest of the days off with his family, and was making more money doing that than he was working a part-time job. Long-term, bigger picture, it goes towards their salary, it goes towards their retirement, long-term, how that all works out. And some of that's been the education with these guys of understanding how their retirement works and what it looks like.
Yeah. And so this one, it's not by any means urgent, but because it is a change in how hours worked are tracked, we did want to bring this sooner in the calendar year for our employees, because this is one of the new reporting requirements for taxes. So that's why we wanted to bring this part forward as a more time-sensitive part. There are other parts of the policy guidelines that we'll be looking at. We learned from the police manual that we don't want to bring all of it forward at once, but this was one that had the, right, here's your 300 pages for your light reading this weekend. So, okay. So with that, let's move on to Mr. Durrell's been waiting very patiently for us, and I want to be mindful of our time as well. So let's bring you up and have you share some information with us, please. Your choice, if you want to do that standing or if you want to come up and sit at one of these microphones, whichever is more comfortable for you. We're game for either.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been sitting a lot today, so standing, this is a nice departure.
Might, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A little closer.
Let's see. How's
We-
that?
Can we
Is that
comment
better?
that that was John
Is that
Person
better?
asking for somebody to use a microphone?
Is that better?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. My name is Josh Durrell. I'm the CEO of the Wyoming Business Council. And we're a state agency that more than anything, we want to develop a landscape where businesses can thrive and families can stay together. I think a lot of times people think in their local community, hey, the economy's doing okay and we're just fine. Or, hey, I've heard that the economy is doing well because the state revenue is up, and so therefore we must be doing just fine. And what we've found is that, quite frankly, Wyoming's economy is on the decline, and that's a statement that is not that popular, but it's reality. And one of the things that we found is that because of our low population in the state, we are challenged to have the workforce that our businesses need to thrive. And ultimately, they need that workforce to be able to grow and take advantage of their business opportunities, and we want to be able to provide that here. And as a state agency, we are asked a lot of times, like, what does that look like? How can we fix this pervasive and persistent problem that Wyoming has? And we have taken the approach of trying to understand the problem at its root cause, and we've taken the approach that we should be honest about the realities, not sugarcoat and make people feel good about where we are. And that causes a few raised eyebrows from time to time, or some sharp comments from legislators about things being just fine. But in all reality, we know that our small population causes us a problem with workforce, which causes our businesses a challenge to stay afloat, which causes them to either stay the same size, shrink, or go out of business, which causes our workforce problem. And you can see that cycle continuing in our small communities. We, as a state, are a very rural state. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you look at it, none of our communities would be considered cities according to national statistics. We are a very sparsely populated state, and all of these things exacerbate the problem that rural America, not just Wyoming, but rural America is feeling. The difference is that in rural America, predominantly, there are city centers close enough where people can be in what's called a commuting zone. We don't experience that here. So we have a mass exodus of, we say it's our youth, but it's really just about anybody until the age of 65, at which point that demographic seems to be growing. As somebody who's approaching that demographic, I'm quite excited about it because I love Wyoming. I've been able to spend my entire career here. But as someone who really cares about the landscape in our communities for businesses, it's a challenging proposition. I give you all of that preamble to tell you that the state and the Wyoming Business Council has been working diligently and aggressively to combat that problem. We do that by investing in the infrastructure at our communities. We do that also by looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem and working to fund businesses so that they can thrive. Now, that gets me in a little bit of trouble from time to time because people say, well, you can't give money directly to businesses and pick winners and losers, but that's not what we do. In fact, if I look at the Business Ready Communities program, which many of you here in Lander understand what that is, I'll give you a very recent example of that. That is the work of this community with the company Maven. You own the building that Maven exists in. Maven pays the community for the use of that building through a lease. That's the Business Ready Communities program in one of its iterations. That creates opportunities for folks in Fremont County, but specifically in Lander, to be able to have great job opportunities. It helps a business thrive in this community and stay where they really want to be. In its best form, that's the way the Business Ready Communities program works. Now, if you take a look at the Business Ready Communities program, as well as what we call YVC, which is our Wyoming Venture Capital Fund, that fund is actually not state money at all. That money is federal money that can be utilized for the state to gain equity in companies. That means we get to take stock in a company with those federal dollars. That's a pretty exciting thing because it turns out we had a chicken and egg problem. We didn't think there was enough money in the system to get entrepreneurs to really take off and go. And because there weren't enough entrepreneurs, there wasn't enough money in the system. So we take chicken and egg problems and we say, well, let's break them. Let's make some omelets or chicken and waffles, whatever you decide. And we said, let's take this federal program and let's begin to put money into the system for venture capital. And what we found is that by adding that money into the system, we created an incredible economic output. And we helped a number of companies stay in Wyoming and hopefully grow their business here to great lengths, maybe even exit and provide a nice return for the state. But all the while, what's happening is that every dollar invested in business-ready communities and YVC results in $20 of economic impact. And people go, well, what's economic impact? And so the head of our investments committee said, well, Josh, it's really simple. That's money in people's pockets in Wyoming. Because so often, as a state agency, we think, well, how does that money that we put into business-ready communities and the Wyoming Business Council turn into state revenue? Well, unless you work for the state, it doesn't impact you at all. I mean, indirectly it does. But what we're looking at is how do we improve the overall economy and how do we help families in Wyoming stay in Wyoming and stay together? Well, $1 turns into 20. Not too shabby. That's a really good investment. And so that is the result of us, especially since 2020, of really taking a hard look at what we do for the state and how do we do it better so that we're doing projects that matter. And in the last 6 years, that's been the change. So as I mentioned before, we are in economic decline overall as a state. But if you look at anything that is not part of the extraction economy, which is the juggernaut in our economy, and we're grateful for it. It has provided for and will continue to provide for the way the state runs. If you take that out of the GDP, what you see is a dramatic improvement in the state's economy for anything that is non-resource. I think what that says is that we're doing a lot of the right things in the state. And we're also taking a look deeper at local level and how can local communities contribute to their economic success. Now, I would like to say that it would be great to go in front of the Joint Appropriations Committee and ask for $1 billion or so to fix all of the infrastructure in the state, because we all know that that's lacking and that does need repair. I would like to be able to say that it would be great to go in front of the Joint Appropriations Committee and say, hey, I think we need to develop some really new entities within the state that might take our rare earths opportunity and turn it into reality, and maybe extract more from that and turn it into applications that could be change the world, and the state could benefit from that. I think there's opportunities there. However, turns out that that's probably not going to be the case this session, and maybe not sessions in the future. But what I can tell you is that at a local level, you have a bigger lever than you can possibly imagine for economic growth. So as I mentioned before, businesses struggle to find employees, to grow, and to take advantage of business opportunities, which what we find is that when multiple businesses, maybe working in the same sector like manufacturing, can continue to cluster in an area and grow together, they can really change an economy. We've seen that in Sheridan County. In Sheridan County, since about 2016, the number of light manufacturing jobs has overtaken the losses that they took in coal mining, and it is now the predominant driver of their economy. That can happen, again, with that state help. But again, the local community has to take some steps toward that as well. And so what I'd like to talk to you about today is just a little bit of work that we can all do together in order to make a difference at a local level. Because again, I really believe that at a local level, your policies, your zoning, and the way you help businesses succeed can be greater than any state program can. And together, we can do a whole lot. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about a town that even I work at a state agency, like to tease a little bit, and that's Cheyenne. It's the city that we all love to hate in Wyoming, next to Gillette, of course. My friends, okay, see it, that got a little kick out of you. My friends in Gillette and Cheyenne are calling me right now and saying that's not true. No, we like to talk about Cheyenne because it's a big community, and we think, oh, well, it's a big community. It doesn't have any of these problems because it's got enough people. It doesn't matter. Well, it turns out that in 2021, a gentleman by the name of Patrick Collins became mayor in Cheyenne. And he said, I'm going to focus on one thing and one thing only in my term as mayor, and that is housing. I'm going to work on changing the housing challenge that we have in Cheyenne, because it turns out that he's right, that housing is an issue for workforce, and workforce is an issue for business, and business is an issue for our communities being stronger and ultimately keeping families together in the state. And so he said, I'm going to focus on that. And so he started to work on it and have a housing task force to look at why aren't more houses being built in Cheyenne? And people said, well, it's the costs, they're too much. Turns out that, there's not enough demand, so supply and demand. I even said that myself. And what I found out when we started to work with the best economists in the world on this very problem in Wyoming is that it's not a matter of demand and supply, because it turns out that even as demand goes up, supply doesn't go up with it. They're not elastic. They're inelastic. And so we said, well, why are they inelastic? And many of you are saying, I did Econ 1000. This isn't any fun. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. Raise your hand if you like Econ. Okay, good. I've got a friend up there. But let me make it really simple. It turns out that it wasn't about supply and demand. It was about other factors in the system that were causing problems for housing in Cheyenne. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the exact same situation occurs in the other 98 municipalities in Wyoming. And that is regulation, over-regulation, and lack of arterial infrastructure are slowing the housing. It's not supply, it's not demand. It is lack of arterial infrastructure and over-regulation. I don't know about all of you, but I know a body that can work on over-regulation. Any guesses who I'm thinking of? The state? Sure, we could, but turns out we can't, not at a local level. And so Mayor Collins went to work, and he started working with us on, well, what regulations are stopping us the most? What can we do about that? Now, he didn't put together this giant package of policy changes and try to do it all at once. You all know that that's a really tough row to hoe. Instead, he started working with his council and saying, how can we make changes that are maybe small but might be significant? How can we make changes that get us in the practice or exercise change and build those change muscles? And so he started slowly, and he started working with us, and we said, here's some ideas, here's some data that might help you. Here are some things that other best practices that are happening around the world. Try these. And over time, he continued to work on them. And he changed parking requirements. And you think to yourself, well, why is parking requirements a big deal for housing? Oh, it's a big deal. And then he changed facade requirements. And then he changed density requirements. And then he changed setbacks. And then he started to work on all of these things. And what happened was, over time, their number of building permits has gone up 300% in the number of building permits issued in Cheyenne. That, to me, is something that we didn't do at the state. Yeah, we helped him out. But at a local level, he was able to impact something that impacts workforce, that impacts business, that makes his community stronger. And so when I think about what can happen at a local level, it is those kinds of things. Does it happen overnight? No. Does it happen without political will and political capital? No. But what he also did was build a really strong, and they might agree or disagree from time to time between his council and him, but they built the muscles required for change at a local level. And they showed that they could create change without the world coming to an end. And I think that together with the state, there are opportunities to handle overregulation and the arterial infrastructure that's needed in order to unlock some of the big challenges that we face. And I don't think that it would be a stretch to say that you've all heard that housing is a challenge. Well, I don't know specifically if it's overregulation and it's arterial infrastructure in Lander, but I would bet you with about 95% certainty that that's what you'll find. And so my advice to you is, how do we work together to do that? My advice is that we begin working together to do that, to begin to look at the overregulation, to look at the arterial infrastructure and your ability to pay or not to pay for it, so that we can partner together to let those things go together. And as regulations lessen, which I think we can all agree is a good thing in Wyoming, and arterial infrastructure can be paid for through partnerships with the city and the state, it might unlock some of the big challenges that our employers face ultimately and our families face as well. And so if I rewind all the way back to the beginning and say, we want to build our community strong by building a landscape where businesses can thrive and families can stay together, it seems weird that parking requirements for housing might just do that. It seems odd that making sure that the facade or the density of housing that you allow could do that, but it can, because it turns out all these things are connected. And I'm guessing that many of you, in fact, all of you, probably hear hundreds, if not thousands, of suggestions on how to make the things change in your community. I hear them. I hear it all the time. And my advice to you is to listen to those, but dig a little deeper. It's 2, 3, 4 layers deep where the problem really occurs. And that is ultimately what the Wyoming Business Council wants to do with you, is understand the problem at a layer that most of us would never understand. And I say that because you're looking at the person who sat in front of the Joint Corporations Committee and said, my job at the Business Council is to increase the supply, or increase the demand for housing so high that it breaks that system. There is no problem, except there needs to be more people. And how wrong I was. Because it turns out that the answer wasn't at the surface. The answer was 2, 3, 4 levels deep. And so as we think about local government's role in economic development, it's there. It is absolutely there. And it is in places that we may not suspect at first. It's in places that the common folks might not understand, including this one. But my call to you is, let's work together to understand the problems, voice those problems to the state and to others so that we can solve them together and work on it. Now, that one example is a great start. And my hope is that the Wyoming Business Council exists in a place where we can do that. My hope is that the Business Ready Communities program can help partner with communities to fund that arterial infrastructure and help businesses that are successful, like Maven, take advantage of the beauty of Wyoming and their love for Wyoming and grow a strong business here. My hope is that that occurs. And more than anything, my hope is that my 4 kids, Olivia, Grace, Ruby, and Maddox, all have the same opportunity that I had to spend my entire career in the place that I love, because the odds are stacked against them. 2 out of every 3 children who are born in Wyoming leave the state by the time they're in their 20s, and they do not return. That's reality. We have the worst outmigration in the nation. I am not popular when I say that, but I'm not trying to be popular. I'm trying to fix the problem. And it's definitely going to take all of us to do it. So what I'm hoping today is to not paint a dismal picture. What I'm hoping to do is paint a picture of opportunity in Wyoming, because you have people that want to work on it. You are people who want to work on it. You don't get elected for all of the fancy trappings of being elected, do you? Raise your hand if you thought that's what you're getting, you didn't get it. No, you don't do this job for the fancy trappings. You do it because of the opportunity to change Wyoming to a place where people can say, I get to stay in Wyoming and it's great for my career. I get to do that. That's what we're trying to do. And there's a huge opportunity to do so. And so I'm happy to stand for any questions that the council or mayor you might have. And I just appreciate your time and your patience with me in delivering probably a lot more of a monologue than you wanted.
Thank you very much for coming here, and especially having to sit through a bit of our regular meeting to be here. And I love the idea of being able to partner with you, and especially some of the things you talk about and the impact on housing. And I am totally on board with the systemic nature of that. And one of the challenges we faced here in Lander is some of the things you've talked about, changing parking regulations for residential setbacks, height, density, et cetera. While folks understand the logic of that, the emotional impact has been such that they were not successful. And it's hard to, I've literally had conversations with folks saying, it is a crying shame that my kids can't afford to stay in Lander, and I really resent that, but don't you dare change a thing about what Lander looks like. And I'm just at a loss of like, you want to be both the solution and the problem. I mean, how do we educate the public in a way that can, and this is a rhetorical question at this point, I don't expect a specific answer from you, but that's one of the questions I would love to be able to work with you about is how do we educate the public that what we say over here is actually deeply impacting our other goal, and to find a common ground between those. So that would be one thing I would love to work with you on, and to get more information. I'm briefly familiar with what Mayor Collins has been able to achieve in Cheyenne with increasing the housing, and we see those same issues here. Folks are struggling to have sufficient workforce to pay them well enough to afford the rents as rents decrease, and so on through that systemic issue.
Well, I realize it's a rhetorical question, and for anyone who might have watched Remote Control from the MTV days, I just lost a turn because I'm going to answer your rhetorical question if I might. It's a rhetorical question in that you're accurately describing the challenge that we face in public life, because we're accountable for a bright future, and at the same time we know that people are, including ourselves, are resistant to change. And so we know that you cannot do both and have that. We can continually decline and everyone can feel good about the status quo. And I've been thinking a lot about leadership lately, and there's a great quote by someone who has helped us with a lot of the communities in Wyoming, and his name is Matt Andrews, and he says, leadership is disappointing people at a rate that they can absorb.
Ouch. That is both brilliant and painful.
It's accurate, right? And I appreciate the way you feel, because we want growth in people. We want people to experience wondrous change. Yet we realize that the path to that is not pleasant, and I think that it's balancing that. I definitely have not found that balance at the state yet. I definitely have not found that balance of communication and problem solving. And I think that's a challenge that we face as leaders. And what I would say is that in looking at power and looking at leadership, I think we need to lean into leadership. And leadership is about creation. Leadership is about change. Leadership is about feeling that tension and leaning into the tension of change and realizing that it will not come with comfort. And I wish there was a silver bullet, except that it is we've got to lead through discomfort. And I have no doubt, as I've traveled the state and met with leaders, I have no doubt we can do it. And I actually have no doubt, based on the polling that we've done, that people won't support that change. No one wants it at first, but they love it when it happens. And I think that that's what we've got to do as leaders, is recognize that that's the situation we're in. And again, thank you for your time. And I hope this isn't the last time I get to come up and see all of you. And I I want to let you know that my team, who works very deeply in problem-solving techniques and would love to work with you on the challenges that you face. Patrick Edwards, who's the regional director in this area, as well as Amber Power, who leads what we call assessment to action. They are at your disposal. So, we would love to continue to work with you and solve some of these challenges in the way that makes sense for Lander.
Right. Thank you. Would certainly look forward to more of those conversations. And one of the things you've mentioned in the conversations you shared, tell us more about what kind of funding opportunities are available for the arterial infrastructure. Because that, as you can imagine, is a pretty substantial cost and hard to achieve in a relatively small community.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And one of those programs right now, that one of those programs, if things stay the way they are with the budget as it is today, and it works through the legislature, will not exist after June 30th of this year. Our agency will not exist after June 30th of this year if things stay the way that they are based on the Joint Appropriations Committee's work. That budget, my budget is zero, and there is legislation that has been submitted, and I will wait with bated breath what will happen on the floor that dissolves our agency. That means that funding source for growth in your communities and the infrastructure required will not exist. And so that Business Ready Communities funding can fund water, sewer, sidewalks, things like that. We love to work on projects that unlock growth. Again, I see Mr. Lilligren is back here for Maven, and I don't want to say that we don't love the Maven project. As you heard from me, it's in its best. It's a fantastic situation. However, it's even better when we can run a water line to something and growth occurs after that. Because I think that is the true role of government, is running that needed infrastructure for growth. So our Business Ready Communities program is that particular funding source for growth. It has been used over the state, and it's done wonders for some communities, and we've also got some roads to nowhere. I'm not going to lie to you. We haven't batted 1,000. We would definitely get into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, but we're not batting 1,000.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I've taken up some time for questions. I want to make sure others have the opportunity to ask questions or think about ways to partner. And Councilmember Stubble, I don't want to ignore you being online as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I will jump in. Mr. Durrell, thank you so much for coming tonight to the council meeting. And thank you for the hard truths that you've been sharing around the state and doing it so well. I'll opine for a minute that I'm beyond disappointed in the Joint Appropriations Committee's budgetary decisions regarding your agency, and I hope that is fixed by the legislature during the budget debate. You've given us a charge to take seriously the overregulation around housing and the lack of infrastructure and how we can try to improve our infrastructure to promote that growth. Would you mind weighing in also on a charge for our economic development organization? Right now, we're in a point of inflection with Lander Economic Development Association. We exist in a partnership through an MOU. They're a separate private nonprofit. What charge would you offer to that EDO in a town like Lander when you look around and have an assessment of our opportunities and vulnerabilities?
Thank you, Mayor and Councilwoman Stubble. Thank you for that question, because the idea that I could give a different answer to the Economic Development Organization, it's actually, I see it as one and the same. The city and the Economic Development Organization need to work together as if they were the same, much like I hope the executive branch and the legislative branch can work together moving forward. But I say that seriously. My charge to the state. So a few years ago, we had some folks who do what's called site selection, which in economic development is basically picking communities that a business could move to and relocate in. And they came and did an assessment of our entire state, and they said, so where are the places that we could plop companies if we had them? And we were like, well, it's right here. And they're like, no, it's not. And so we said, okay, well, let's dig down and analyze it. Tell us the hard truths about what we have as economic development organizations, what we have as the state, what our communities have or don't have that we need. And they came back and were, well, they fit my style. They were brutally honest. And I loved that because they said, we work in areas that have smaller towns that devote more effort to economic development than you might as an entire state. And people don't understand the scale that it takes. The economic development organizations in our communities are vitally important. And I realize that there's a funding challenge that all of our communities also face, right? We are working within a system that is scraping by at best. But if I rewind the clock to when I was in business and things went tough, you don't get rid of your sales team when things get tough. You just don't do that. And I look at our economic development organizations and even your roles as sort of like the sales team. How are we going to break down these barriers for growth, even though times are tough? So what I would suggest is that you make sure that they are well-funded and that they have a good mission, and we can help develop that based on your community. Do not fall into the best practices trap. They do it in Cheyenne like this, so we should do it exactly the same. You should solve Lander's problems, not Cheyenne's problems. And we can work with you to identify what those problems are and work together with your economic development organization and the community, the city and the county, to get that done. I guess what I would say is make sure that they are well-funded, well-trained, well-respected, and have a deep and can gain the knowledge from an entity like ours or an entity like the best economists in the world that we're putting forth, and utilize that information and then put it into practice. And you're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to make some things happen. But again, you're trying to build those muscles. You're not trying to hit it out of the park the first time. Patience and funding. I should
Thank
have said
you. Thank you.
Yeah. One else, I mean, I realize, I appreciate your optimism and I want to share in that, while also being cognizant of the challenges we have with, as our major extractive industries, while still are present, absolutely, but they're not the same economic force that they have been. And small independent businesses, I don't even know what the ratio is of how many hundreds of those we would need to, match 1 month of what an extractive industry builds. So I know some of the comments that legislators made about the business counts of X number of funds have been spent, but yet the economy is in decline. My question is, well, where would we have been had that effort not gone into place? My hunch is we would be in an even worse position. So, but that I bring it back to, I hope that more and more residents see that this is our call to action, that we have to be shopping locally, supporting businesses, trying, creating that entrepreneurial space where businesses can thrive. It's upon all of us. I love that we have the Shop Small Saturday during the fall, but that should be every Saturday all year round. It's not just during the holiday season. We have to support our local businesses and make it a place where they can continue to thrive.
Well said. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Mr. Durrell? Thank you again then for coming here. I appreciate that. Would absolutely love to have continued conversations with you, and I know we will. So you've got my contact info. I've got yours.
Yep.
So,
Happy
yeah.
to be back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Right. So with that, folks, it's our favorite part of work sessions as well. Well, yep. No, we don't have to vote. We can adjourn. Have a good evening, everyone.